lot of soul.
This is Bass Talk Live. Your host, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrack. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, Spro, AFCO, Big Bite Baits, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Wow, Matthew, a great show today. I'm so excited about it. I can't believe I actually came up with a kind of a weird idea from the windshield time that I had driving to the Arkansas River. I was just thinking about a lot of stuff, thinking about people to get on the show, and I managed to make contact once again with Larry Nixon, and he's going to be on today, man.
Cool. How'd the river go? That's what everyone wanted to know. I had two people message me that said, how'd Jeffries do?
No, it was all right. It was all right. It was really tough. We caught 12 fish, 4 fish limit. We had about, 8-9 pounds. 2 pounds apiece.
You told me yesterday you had 9-10 pounds.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Dude, the fish were rails.
Would you have cashed a check is my question if you had weighed them in?
I don't know. Maybe.
You didn't even weigh them in.
I know.
Why?
Well, the situation is
4 fish limit.
It's a 4 fish limit, but you could put in wherever you wanted to. So we put in down at Kerr, and we didn't see a boat all day long.
Okay.
And it was a hour drive back to Three Forks where you had to check in.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at Ed and I go, man, what do you think? I said, look, I don't care. Do whatever. I said, I've just enjoyed the day. I've caught fish. I've learned a lot from you. You're the one that's got to drive up there and drive back. You make the call. He goes, what do we got? So we took each fish, transferred it from one side of the live well to the other side. And he goes, I don't know, man. He goes, we probably got 9 pounds, maybe 8 pounds, maybe 10 pounds. It was hard to tell because these fish were so skinny.
But no, when you said you had to go pay your entry fee then.
Yeah.
And you would have cashed a check.
I don't know.
It would have been close.
Probably.
Well, it would have been a $100 check.
Yeah. Not that much.
Ed's gas money to get all the way to Three Forks and back to his house because he's right there by the range.
But I'm telling you, man.
Fun day, though.
It was a great day. It was a tough day. And to spend a day, this is all about catching for me. Because the fishing part and the strategy part that went into play, that was all Ed. Mm-hmm. I was just in the back of the boat.
You just show up and catch.
That's me. Yep. That's my job. But it really made me think about being in the boat with Ed and being in a boat with somebody that has spent 40 plus years fishing this body of water.
Wonder how many lower units he's been through. That would be a serious question.
Probably
like,
not
Ed,
too many lately.
How many times have you just ripped the whole thing off the back end?
Yeah, there were 2 things that I really picked up on from yesterday. All right, from being in the boat with somebody that has that much experience on a body of water. One, he was constantly talking about how the river had changed due to the flood that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't spend a lot of time there. I remember certain things in certain areas, but the one thing that I did notice about the characteristic of the river is sandbars everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And they move.
Yeah, and they didn't used to be where they are now, and the ones that were there are now massive. So that was the first thing. And so many of the fish really get on this individual structure that wash up on these sandbars, where you might have a foot of water, sometimes even 6 inches of water. But this time of the year, the fish will get on those laydowns and it becomes an ambush point. That's how they feed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the number of these ambush points on the sandbars was minimal because the flood had really taken everything away from these particular areas. Places where I thought that we would get bit, we did not get bit. And Ed was a little mesmerized by the whole deal. Places that we did get bit, he'd turn to me and he'd go, wow, I didn't expect that. So that was really the first thing. The second thing is the ability of somebody like Ed to be able to selectively choose what they want to target. And that sounds kind of stupid, but knowing what's good and what's bad structure to fish on the river is really a characteristic that just comes from experience. Because we would fly by a particular willow bank or willow tree or something like that, and I'm like, dude, how come we didn't flip it that? Or how come we didn't throw a swim jig on there? And he goes, not the right stuff. Okay, why is it not the right stuff? Did you see any bait around there? Did you see anything around there? No, it's not the right stuff. So the ability to learn and capitalize from the experience of somebody like Ed, dude, I don't care if we would only caught 3 fish. It wouldn't have mattered. Because being on the water and being able to do what Ed does and being able to see what Ed does, valuable time on the water with a guy that's got 40 plus years experience on the Arkansas River, especially this time of the year. And this time of the year is really when you're supposed to catch them. Mm-hmm. But they were rails, dude. Rails. So great day, fun day. And really, really appreciate Ed taking time out to spend a day with me. We're going to fish one more thing. He felt bad about the whole deal. He's like, oh, yeah, we should have drove up there. I'll never do that again, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. Move on down the road. So it cost us $100. So what?
There you go.
Learn from it. But great day. Threw a swim jig most of the time. Caught most of our fish on a spinnerbait, of all things. And what do you think the distinctive characteristic about the spinnerbait was, Matthew?
Come
on, that's easy.
Orange kicker?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So great day, man. Great day. Great show today. As I mentioned, Larry Nixon, we're going to have him on via the phone. Larry is in an area kind of like what Brian was in the other day. His internet connection, non-existent. So it's going to be a phone interview. But the reason that I wanted him on, Matt, is I want to talk about worm fishing. And it really kind of dwarfed from the day that I spent with Bradley where we were fishing big worms on brush piles. All right. Is that something that has been lost, not used, not capitalized on because there's so many options out there and people don't keep it simple? I asked you, what was the question I asked you when you...
I just think there hasn't been many midsummer tournaments.
Yeah, but when you fished yesterday,
lakes.
What was the question that I asked you? Did you throw a big worm?
Yeah.
And what'd you say?
Yeah.
How long though?
Like 10 casts, but here's the reason.
You don't give it enough time.
No, I wasn't trying to catch him on a big worm. I was trying to catch him on a drop shot. I went out to 10 killer yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I'd watched these guys at Sturgeon Bay, and I was like, yeah, screw it. I'm going to go try to catch him on a drop. So
yeah.
I did. I found a brush pile with green leaves on it and caught him like 25 bass around one brush pile. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Speaking of catching a ton of bass, are we moving on to what occurred yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we've Jacob Wheeler. And dude, Jordan Lee's the guy we should be talking about like this. Seriously,
he's really, really
it's just
good, man.
Now he's got the Angler of the Year title to add to his resume. 5 regular season events. He wins because Wheeler did not make the finals. None of the guys that were in competition with him made the finals. There were Michael Neal, him, Jordan Lee, Wheeler, and Fletcher Shryock, who, let's just say, Mr. Malone might have to return some mint jelly from the that he had planned for the Thunderbolt ball coming up next year. Wonder if that's a returnable item there. But moving on, Jordan Lee, he's your Angler of the Year, your points champ, your title. How do you feel that in a 5-event pandemic-shortened season that was all over the board, with the very good possibility, based on the Bass Fan article and other things that have coming out, that the tour and the BPT will look drastically different next year, where does this Angler of the Year title fall? Is it one that'll get lost in the mix? Will it hold the same weight as an Elite Series or an FLW Tour Angler of the Year? Like, where do you put this in perspective, considering all of the extraneous factors going into this season?
I think it sets its own standard. I think it is uncomparable. And here's why, Matt. Can you compare it to future BPT seasons? Absolutely. But I don't think you can compare it to an FLW AOI. I don't think you can compare it to an Elite Series AOI, because the strategy, the format, and everything that is being played from a game perspective is different. It's different. Now, can you compare personalities and profiles and field strength? Yeah, because they're all doing the same thing on the BPT. But I don't think you can compare it to the other organizations' Angler of the Year simply because the game is being played different. Let me give you an example. If there were a ton of NFL players playing in the Canadian Football League, could you do a comparison between the most valuable player in the NFL and the most valuable player in the CFL?
No.
Because the game is played different in Canada. You only have 3 downs. The field is bigger. The end zones are bigger. You know, you can have motion. There is no illegal procedure. The rules are different. The game is played different in Canada than it is in the U.S. when it comes to football. But can you say somebody that is a superstar in the Canadian Football League, if you have the comparisons to be able to look at the seasons over time and say, man, this dude, he's superstar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wormn was a superstar in the Canadian Football League for the Edmonton Eskimos, but he was a superstar in the NFL too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, he was able to play both games well. Is Jordan Lee the wormn of professional fishing? What's funny?
Yeah, no, you'd never think Jordan Lee and wormn would ever be in a comparison.
But is that not a great comparison, though?
Yeah, definitely. So Lee gets that. This is the pettiest thing I'll ever say on BTL, but it cracked me up last night. This is meaningless. This is very petty. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm qualifying what I'm about to say. But they came out with the press release last night, right?
Yeah.
Mark Daniels Jr. wins the round. Here's the top 10 guys that are fishing tomorrow. And Jordan Lee, Angler of the Year, wins the point title.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of him. This official MLF press release that he wins the point title. And I'm like, that's an odd looking smallmouth. But I still thought it was
a smallmouth.
I thought it was kind of a smallmouth.
Yeah.
But it had it kind of looked like one of those Chickamauga smallmouth, if you know what I mean. Like they're kind of like a mix between like a weird looking spot and then they're like pale with like white on the belly.
What was the giveaway though?
I was looking at it and I'm like, oh, that's a drum.
The fin.
The fin on the bottom.
Yeah.
They used a photo of him holding a drum to announce
honest
that he had won the BPT points
honest
title.
Mistake.
Like I said, this is petty, but I said if there is a picture to symbolize 2020, it's that.
Chaos.
Just the way it all went down, but I got an absolute crack out of that.
They fixed it.
They fixed it. But.
Yeah, they fixed it. It is a smallmouth, but not technically a smallmouth.
Like I said, does it make a difference in the grand scheme of things? No. Did I get a chuckle out of it? Absolutely.
Is it easily...
No, it's the most smallmouth-like looking drum that I've ever seen.
It looked brown.
It was.
Yeah,
That's how I said it was a small, but I was like, something about it made me want to zoom in on it. And then I was like, oh, God, that's a drum.
Yeah. All right. So anything else from Sturgeon Bay? Yeah. How about the rally by Ike? That was pretty cool to watch.
Both of them knocked the 2 guys out in the last minute. So we got a final day today to see who wins. What is it? $65,000 in the last regular season points title. I did come across some interesting stuff.
What's that?
Moving over to the Elite Series side, right? So Cayuga canceled. They did say in the press release that they're going to move it to a later date on a different fishery. So they're not like losing that tournament as of now.
Yes.
But the 13th, we mentioned this yesterday, that the 2 events are moving forward in New York. and we don't do many soccer or football comparisons for our European listeners on this show, but I'm going to do one right now, and it's in the news. And we've talked about how they're going to move forward with the testing, with the athlete's clause, with all of this
temperature
COVID
checks
stuff. So here's from the Bass Communications press release on the 13th. The state of New York recently released guidelines for professional sport competitions, which include diagnostic testing and protocols for daily health screenings for all athletes and staff, along with host and social distancing measures, and no fans. Diagnostic testing and protocols leads me to believe that these Elite Series anglers will take coronavirus tests and temperature checks and all that, and as long as they pass it, they'll be able to compete. Fair assessment.
Yeah.
I'm going to now compare this to the MLS, which stands for Major League Soccer. They're doing, I don't know, lack of a better term, some giant tournament with all the guys. And this is off of the Washington Post, and there's a picture of a bunch of dudes in really short umbros practicing. And then they had a number of individuals from different teams right before this tournament is supposed to take place, and this was posted on the 12th, and it says DC United's MLS match with Toronto postponed after positive and inconclusive coronavirus tests.
Inconclusive.
And we had been talking about, what do you do with a guy who is midway through the season and he tests positive on the Elite Series? There's 80 guys in there. You look at, there were 14 on the Sooners. There's, PGA Tour. You've had NASCAR guys who've had to sit out and stuff. So,
Russell Westbrook.
Chances are something's going to happen. So, but anyway, I'm going to read a section out of this as to how they dealt with it. DC United's tournament match against Toronto FC on Sunday morning was postponed for a few minutes before it was supposed to kick off after a United player produced an unconfirmed positive test and a Toronto player had an inconclusive test. However, in an illustration of the uncertainty and confusion that sports leagues face in their attempt to restart during a pandemic, subsequent tests were negative, and the league rescheduled the game for Monday at 9 a.m.
So a little bit of confusion there.
Yeah. So
from
you
a
had
testing standpoint,
tests that were positive where they weren't going to have the game, and then subsequent tests said they were negative, so they were. So there's false positives in sports. No one really knows. But in a bass tournament, let's say you test positive. It doesn't matter if you test negative a day or two later. The tournament's already started. You're out of it.
Unless they could do another test immediately, of which they said that they would do multiple tests.
But it'll be interesting. So here's the next question. Let's say, hypothetically, out of 80-plus guys, someone is probably going to test positive. Would you not agree? Hopefully not. Yeah. Hopefully not. But if they are, then do they get a medical exemption for the entire 2021 season then?
Good question.
That would be the definition of a medical exemption, wouldn't it?
I would think they would.
You literally medically are not cleared to compete out of something that...
Maybe. I don't know. That's something that I think they will deal with if and when that situation occurs.
So I just thought it's just kind of some interesting parallels.
That is interesting. Yeah. So 2 events, and then they're going to make up the Cayuga event. And what is the one characteristic about the event at the St. Lawrence River that has been the case every single time they've been there, besides catching massive quantities of smallmouth? What is the one characteristic about that event?
They all go to Canada?
No. But that's not what I'm thinking about, but that is true.
The one characteristic? Oh, the crowds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the crowds there are massive. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can still keep the crowds away, because you can't have a gathering like that.
Oh, heck yeah. They'll have tape out and no admittance and stuff like that. I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Elo will be on top of that. The guy trained for this. He's done the Olympics and all that stuff. I think he knows how to seal off a venue.
Yeah. I was talking to Ed yesterday about, some of the things that are taking place in high school sports. And I said, dude, are you going to have to quarantine and ban fans for your football games? Because football in Vian, Oklahoma is a big, big, big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, yeah. He said, because he's on the school board. He said, we have a plan in place. He said, but the problem is if we shut people out, they're going to be standing around the fence watching. And it made me think, is that same situation, or is that even a possibility at some of the venues to where if people really want to watch, because there's not a whole lot of other things to do in the area where the St. Lawrence River is, and that is a huge, huge event, big event for the fans, big event for the people. I don't know. Could you have it and keep 6 feet apart? That's New York, man. That's not going to happen.
No.
Not going to happen.
I'm also interested to see what they have not said.
This is a good point. Mike says can't keep people off the water.
Yeah, true. But they've not said anything
that might be a
about
factor, dude. Might be a factor.
the Bassmaster Open that is kind of in the middle of all this stuff. So that'll be interesting to see what comes down the pipeline that way.
Hey, another question is, do the guys have to do anything to get out of New York? I think they could just leave. I don't think they have to be quarantined or remain in New York, and I think they could just leave, Maynard.
We are halfway through Virtual ICAST.
Yeah, and I spoke to Ken Duke yesterday.
Yeah, what you actually have gone through, gotten all the credentials, taken part in the Virtual ICAST as far as
it's a little cumbersome.
Meeting. So what are your thoughts?
A little cumbersome, a little confusing. I spoke to Ken on my way home last night, asked him what the feedback was. From a vendor perspective, it seems like they are pleased and happy. From a participant perspective, same sentiment. Confusing, a little bit cumbersome, a better way to navigate and find stuff could have been available. So, hey, you're walking through the door for the first time. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from it. And they're trying to do something because it's the first time in history that there hasn't been that face-to-face contact, with vendors, with retail wholesalers, with manufacturers, and then obvious the media. So there's been some frustration, but at the same time, there's been some positives about it too, man. It's kind of cool. I spent probably an hour perusing and looking at stuff, and it's weird how they have many, many items from one company rather than just one item featured, which is a little bit different. But I don't know. Fans can go out there and they can look at stuff. They can't go into certain areas, but they can look at a number of the things that are on display and some of the new stuff. And I tried to kind of gauge it from a product mixture perspective to what's been done in the past, and that was kind of hard to do. Because there's so much. I mean, it is unbelievable the amount of stuff that is out there to look at. But honestly, nothing really caught my attention besides the BFE.
Yeah, you know what's cool? It's on Tackle Warehouse now.
Cool.
I'm going to read
in stock?
No, it says July 23rd.
Okay,
is when it'll be in stock, and they've got 8 of the colors. They're missing the. They do not yet have the
BTL color,
or Bedlam, but those you can order on the Big Bite site.
Well, they got something against Oklahoma?
No, I just think it's the production there. But I'm gonna read the first slide. It cracked me up. It said develop in collaboration between Bass Elite Series Pro Bradley Hallman, which I guess he was an Elite Series Pro for 6 years, so you could say that.
Yeah. And
Bass Talk Live co-host Matt Pangrak. The concept of the BFE creature bait was documented from start to finish on Matt and Brad's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not buying a bait because the co-host of a podcast designed it. I mean, if that doesn't sell you on it.
You had a lot to do with it, though, dude.
I know.
You
At
did.
least throw in there that I fished the Opens or that I cashed a check in a Costa last year or something. But no, they did a great job. They actually went through and talked all about the bait, and the photos are on it, and then they linked it to that video when we actually went to Lucky Lure Tackle, and we're kind of putting the bait in the design process where his daughter was drawing it and stuff. That's all linked into the Tackle Warehouse page. So
very cool.
Super cool to see it up there.
What's the date?
July 23rd is when it's available on Tackle Warehouse. They've got a little asterisk there, and it says arrival dates are supplied by the manufacturer and subject to change.
Is the BTL color available on?
Not yet. Like
Still
I said,
not.
it's a triple laminate with the colors and then the BTL color in the middle of it. So they have to do some different things before you can pour and inject that.
So when you get some of those, are we going to give some of those away?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see that. All right.
I will say this. So I know guys have been getting a lot of the BFE packs, and the winner he's from Arkansas. I think he got his 500 of the for choosing the right color.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this with the other big bite baits, but the clamshells keep everything straight. Right. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you're also paying $3.99 a pack for these too. So you're getting a deal for them on 6, and they're stacking them. I see, like, with the tails straight.
Right.
But if that stack gets out, you can get a little kink in the tail. Super easy fix on this is get those deep Plano boxes. And when you have them, stagger those baits in there so they're perfectly flat. I do this with all my baits, regardless of what kind it is. The weight on the top keeps the baits on the bottom flat. This is the way Aaron Martins does his robo worms. That's how I learned this back before. Like, if you just have a pack and a half of them in there, they're going to toss around and you're going to get them kinked. But if you get it to where they're flush, to where, you're kind of compressing the plastic when you close the top of that lid, those baits aren't going to jostle around. They're not going to move. Those tails are going to stay straight.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Good way of doing it.
So that's my tip of the
cool
day. I
stuff.
do that with all of them, whether it's the Yo Mama, the Yo Daddy, the Swimming Mama, the any of those baits that have appendages that get. Now I might just be OCD, but if it's just a little bit off, I'm just like, well, there's no way in hell a fish is going to eat that, which they obviously will, because I mean, you fish with.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but if you're one of those perfectly straight guys, spend 45 minutes at night, watch a TV show, watch fishing, listen to BTL, and pack those baits in there to where they ain't moving around.
Very nice. Hey, real quick, I want to go back to the Jordan Lee thing. All right, when you asked me about that, I was making a comparison between leagues. I'm not taking anything away from what the guy did this year.
I was the one asking it.
Yeah.
I was saying, is it less impressive because it was a 5 events instead of 8 events, and it was a new format instead of the best 5? And how does it compare to a KVD Elite Series Angler of the Year?
Really, really, really impressive.
On par, but different category.
You can't compare it
Right.
to other AOI titles.
Level of impressiveness, though, for AOI titles, it's you stand alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't take away anything from the ability of what the guy did. It's like I said. It's what Warren Moon did in the Canadian Football League. He was a superstar. Jordan Lee is a superstar. Bottom line, agreed?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Warren Moon was a superstar in the NFL, although he never won a Super Bowl. At least I don't think he did.
That's funny. Someone said go to, they should have gone back to Oahe.
Was that South Dakota?
Yeah, remember that? And then I didn't realize there was that the Dakota Access Pipeline Wars going on, and it goes under Lake Oahe. I was reading all about it the other day. You know that they just ordered it shut down, and there's a bunch of crazy stuff going on. That's all up there around Lake Oahe.
Yeah.
I mean, that place is literally like going to the surface of the moon. Like, I felt like Neil Armstrong covering a tournament on Lake Oahe.
Yeah.
You look across it, because I went out and rode in practice with a couple different guys back when we were covering them, and you look across it and he's like, well, I'm going to just go over to that point over there. And you're like, okay. You're like, not put your camera stuff up or anything, because you're just going to a point across the lake. And then you start driving and it's like 20 minutes away. It's just massive. Just to get anywhere, you're going around a point, and it takes you 20 minutes just to get to the tip of the point and go around it. Yeah. You can't fathom how grand everything is. And there's no people.
Nothing.
There's walleye fishermen, and that's it.
Nothing. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back with the greatest worm angler of all time. Maybe. Agreed? Disagree? Matthew?
Yeah, he's in the yes. Well, yeah, as far as wins with it, yeah, absolutely.
I talked to 3 people, and I asked them that question, and they all said Larry Nixon.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right.
Well, I'm just saying there's other guys who are synonymous with the worm, but as far as the greatest, if you look at statistically, Larry Nixon.
All right. Coming back with Larry. Everybody stay tuned.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. The best fish finding tools, from chirp sonar and fish reveal to side scan and down scan imaging, and complete touchscreen control from your trolling motor to your big motor.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need a 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it in sexy shad color?
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
Hey everybody, Tide Faircloth here. Want to show you one of my favorite braided lines, SX1 30-pound Sunline braid. I use this braided line for a couple of different applications, and one of my favorites to use for this line is a swim jig. Casts great, and it's small diameter, and just works really great on a swim jig. Another technique I like to use for 30-pound SX1 Sunline braid is whenever I'm flipping like a light, say an 1/8 to a 1/4 ounce weight in grass, small diameter, I don't lose much action on my worm, just works great in those scenarios. So if you're looking for a braided line for a swim jig or fishing a light Texas rig, check out Sunline's SX1 30-pound braid.
All right, we are back on a Wednesday. And any idea when the BTL color is supposed to be? I know I keep asking you that, but no idea.
No. I said a couple.
Can you find out for me?
Coach had one of his Les over there, and Les does every week. He sits down in front of the big bite baits pegboard there at Eufaula with a different bait, and he has a little coach's corner, little coach talk where he talks about it. And he said that it was coming soon. So whatever.
See if you can find out. See if you can get a hard date.
It's a triple laminate. I bet Larry knows all about the laminates and
probably does
glittered fleck. I mean, you design baits like that, but apparently that requires a different. Like what you don't understand is when you go to that factory.
Yeah.
You know, when Brad and I went, there's the no cameras area, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it all goes down.
Secret stuff.
That's where it all goes down. And I mean, it's like what are those deals where like you hit one domino and then there's like 80 million things that happen? A Rue.
I don't know.
Rue Goldberg? Or is that the drag queen? What is it? Like
that would be RuPaul.
RuPaul.
Yeah.
But isn't it? It's one of, you know what I'm talking about?
I know what
this
you're talking
causes
about.
this, which
Yeah.
causes this.
Yeah.
That's what that whole room looks like.
Yeah.
It's like crazy how it's all set up. So I guess you have to do all sorts of different stuff for a laminate.
Yeah.
I know just enough to probably confuse people about it.
Probably so.
But I never seen anything like it. It's mesmerizing. You just
Yeah.
stand back there and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wow.
Cool stuff. Never been. Gonna have to go someday, hopefully. All right. It is time to hopefully keep our fingers crossed that the system is in place to bring in our very, very special guest. Larry, you there, man?
I'm here.
All right. Can you hear us good?
Well, it's kind of weak, but yes, I think I can make it out.
Well, you know, Mark never speaks loud or clear, so he's a little soft,
Yeah, you're
soft in
clear
the
as a bell.
voice. Yeah. Jeffries is a little meek when it comes to talking.
All right, I'll try and get it dialed in here, Larry, to get it a little bit better. Anyway, man, thank you so much for taking time out to be a part of the show. And I had the opportunity and I had the great pleasure of spending some time with Brad Hallman a week ago, and we were fishing big worms and brush piles. And I thought, is this something that is just kind of lost, kind of overlooked? Yeah, I know there's people out there that still do it. And I know there's not too many tournaments that take place in the heat of summer. But I have a fond love for fishing that big worm and brush piles. So I called 3 guys and I said, all right, who's your number 1 worm guy? And all 3 of them in the media said Larry Nixon. I said, I got to get Larry back on the show so we can talk a little worming. And you're the number 1 guy, man. And these are three very influential people from a media perspective, and they all said that you were the number 1 guy when it came to worming.
Well, I think the reason why they say that is because I taught so many of them how to worm fish about 40 years ago. That was just one of my styles, I guess, because of guiding and spending so much time in the boat with 3 people, and I didn't like treble hooks slinging around. And the only thing reliable day in and day out all year long was a piece of plastic and a slip sinker and a hook, and just you're going to catch fish on the thing. And then after I won about 5 tournaments on a worm, it's like, oh, here's the worm guy.
Well, let's go back in history real quick. How did the whole worm thing get started for you?
Well, basically, it really got started guiding, and it kind of evolved out of Texas, and a jig head worm came along here in Arkansas, and then when I moved to Toledo Bend, that's where the Texas rig really took off, because the lake is so full of timber, and there's not a lot of baits you can fish in all that timber without staying hung up, and a Texas rig was just the way to go every day, seemed like. And my fondness of it come from catching so many out of a spot. It wasn't like I'd pull up and catch 3 or 4 on a crankbait, and then I'd have to leave. With a Texas rig worm, you tie up to a stump and catch 50. And the old big worm, that's just a big bass staple in so many of our lakes in the summertime because of the amount of cover that people bury, brush piles, old tree lines, old pond dams, whatever you've got out there that the bass like to hold on. And you can get a Texas rig through it, and a lot of other baits you can't get through it.
What is the deal? And I'm kind of moving all over the place now, but why a big worm in the summertime, Larry?
Well, because your fish get lethargic. They get down there close to the bottom, especially these first 3 or 4 months of the summer, like May, June, and July. That's when they really tend to get on the bottom, get deep, get around cover, and that's why that big worm is so good, because when they get lethargic, what I call lethargic is they don't really chase a lot of things. Occasionally a school will get excited, and I come up and chase bait or hit your crankbait or hit a moving plug or whatever. But when they're lethargic and they're down there on that bottom, there's just something about shaking that old big worm right in their face that they can't stand. And, that's why I say it is the go-to bait in the summertime.
Now, when you started tournament fishing, I mean, the Texas rig was around. It had been around.
Yes.
Right. was it? We're talking. Let's go late 70s, right?
Yeah. Yes, late 70s.
Yeah. Was it like the go-to thing in the late 70s? Like you're all lined up waiting for Ray to shoot the gun in his tasseled jacket to race to the spot. Like, does everybody have the pistol grip 6.6 with worms on the front deck, or was it something that like didn't come on until a little bit later?
Oh no, there wasn't a deck of a bass boat there that didn't have a worm laying on it. Back in them days, I mean, you had Tom Mann, you had Powell, John Powell. You had some real gurus there now that was worm fishermen. Now, I was just a kid. I was a baby then, believe me. And Bill Dance and Roland and all them guys, every single one of them had a worm on their neck. That was probably the number one bait back in them days, other than say a spinner bait. Everybody had pattern baits, but their killer bait was that worm.
So do you remember your first like worm setup? And we've gone through, I remember the last time I think we had you on BTO, we talked about what you were using, like 12-pound test on that fish in the lily pads in Florida when you caught it in the whole course and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember your first, like what was your, when you launch in 1977 on Greer's Ferry at the Arkansas Invitational, what was your worm setup? Rod, reel, line, and worm.
My worm setup in that first tournament was probably, my gosh, you're going way back there, but I'm pretty sure it was, I can't even remember the name of that rod. It was a heavy sucker with pistol grip, but I think it was a head. It was an old head and rod with probably a 5500C on there, and 14-pound test Trilene XT. That was the line of the day back then, and an old 4/0 blue mustad hook and a regular old lead quarter-ounce slip sinker without pegging it. I didn't know how to peg no sinker back in the early days of BASS, but that come along a little bit later. But my very first memory of catching the bass on a worm was when I was about 17. I think I was still a junior or senior in high school, and the old Gilmore worm came out. It was a big old 8 or 9 inch worm, and it's flat on one side, and it had a lead head with a brush weed guard on it. And that was the first worm I ever seen my whole life. And I tied that thing on there, and you ain't gonna really believe this, but I'd heard how good worms were, and I slung that thing up against a bridge pier and just kind of pushed my button and was feeding out a little bit of line, and it didn't go down but about 10 to 12 foot, and it stopped sinking. And I said, well, I don't know that there's anything there. It's about 100 foot deep under that. And I reeled that slack up. Sure enough, it was a bass, and I caught him. But that was my first worm rig. It was a lead head with a brush guard. The hook was exposed, of course, because you had a brush guard. And, the Texas rig came along about 2 years after that.
Wait, I believe you just described that you invented wacky worming. You're the first person to ever catch exposed hook, big worm, falling on a bridge piling, suspended fish. Larry, you're the godfather of the wacky worm.
There ain't no doubt I'm the godfather of jighead worm, because that was exactly what that was. Only it had a brush guard on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very cool. Larry, how much over time, and I don't know if time really matters, but how much over time does color really matter? In other words, you have your standard colors, it seems everybody uses, what? Grape and plum and
tequila sunrise, watermelon red, blue fleck.
Yeah,
those are your colors.
Red shad.
Yeah, but you carry all them colors right there for a reason. Yes, different watercolor requires a different worm color, and I've seen days when a guy could put on a bright strawberry worm, and all of a sudden he'd be kicking my rear, and I'd be sold on a black grape or a June bug, and this dude is just wearing my tail out on that translucent strawberry colored worm. So there is no doubt in my mind that there are situations where a different color may produce more, more fish than what you're throwing. So that's why I carry about 8 colors in my boat everywhere I go. I mean, when I'm practicing, I've got these 8 color worms, and that's basically what I stick with. But if I see something in the water, something different, I've got other colors in my truck. I go back and put one with a tail color on it. I know great fire tail or a great yellow tail. If they're eating shad, they ain't nothing better than a little flash on that tail. And so I carry a ton of colors, but my staple is about 8 colors.
Okay. What's your best one out of those 8?
The most consistent out of them 8's green pumpkin.
Huh? Makes sense. Interesting. All right. Matt, question?
Yeah, how many worms would you say you have designed over the course of your career? Where you
I've been in on the design of, oh my goodness, several. I'm just going to say 4 or 5 because, like I say, I've really worked hard on 2 or 3, and one pretty much I designed totally myself. And but that's a lot of that's communication with other fishermen and the manufacturers. And, you're involved, but you don't really come up with the total design.
Have you ever gotten into pouring them yourself, to doing all that stuff yourself?
No, I have not. I've repaired a many, but
Really?
but I haven't poured my own. I've carried them little hot pens around and repaired them when I'd run short on worms because, there was times when you didn't have a lot of worms. And, I mean, you had to ration them dudes to get through a week. And so we learned how to repair them.
And then one more question while I was on the design of it. I wanted, so everyone tries to reinvent the wheel, right? You have all these different style of crankbaits. Now you got all the different style of bladed jigs. There's 8 million different jig companies. Everyone has their different thing. Is there any more like new horizons in worms, or like, has it all been done and a worm is a worm and all the good worms have the same characteristics in it? Or is there in your opinion, is there an Alabama rig of worm out there, or a chatterbait of worm out there, or a whopper plopper of worm that all of a sudden you're going to eventually in the future come out and every bass in the brush pile is going to be like, I want a piece of that?
Well, along came the Cinco. That's a worm.
Yeah.
But the Cinco is a different variation of a worm. And, actually there's lots of times when you can catch the snot out of them on a Cinco and you can't get one to bite a worm. And, so I'm not going to say there's not ever going to be this new miracle worm come along because I know better. I know better to say something like that after all these years. There's always some idea pops up that really just, turns the worm fishing world upside down. And I really can't see something in the future that's going to blow me away, so I got to go buy a whole bunch of them. But it might happen.
Might happen.
That's the only way I know how to put that.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, man, like, you reach a point on a worm where it's like it's got to be like all done, right?
Well,
but then, like he said, then the Cinco comes out.
Yeah, something comes out.
I guess it doesn't exist because no one thought about it.
Tied into Matt's question, I want to talk a little bit about the tail of the worm. Straight-tailed worm, curly-tailed, single-tail. I mean, you have a lot of variations when it comes to the tail. What can you tell the fans about, is there a rule, is there a characteristic based upon the conditions that you would use a straight tail or a curly tail? How important is that tail, Larry?
Well, it's very important in bass fishing because, you want them to look like it's swimming at times. I mean, when you got grass and weeds and you got minnows and bait fish, that's when a swimming tail is really good. And that's why, you've got different styles of tails in plastic worms. And, I've seen them with wings. I've seen them with tails. I've seen pretty much everything that's ever been designed. And, I don't go fishing without my curly tail worms. If I go to a river where the water's low, I want a big old curly tail worm. And, that is just an extra attractant. And there's lots of things you can do with the pail of worm. Color it to, you can dip it, you can give it some flash. But still, again, that pail is everything in working a worm through the grass bed. I want a swimming worm when I'm working that thing through heavy weeds and dropping it in a little hole. I want it to look like a real minnow or a real brim that just falls down in there. You say it's a worm. It don't look like a brim, but to me, I think a fish sees that as something swimming, more or less a minnow or a brim, and that's why they bite them so good.
All right, I'm curious. Back in the day, can you remember any story of somebody out there that Matt and I and the fans would know that came up to you during a tournament and said, "Hey, Larry, man, those XYZ worms? Any way that you might be able to spare a couple of those?" Who came up to you and asked you for some of your worms?
Let's see. I think from certain worms that he knew I had in my boat, and I've been guilty of asking other guys that same thing. You get a partner in a boat with you, and he's got one bag of a certain color worm, and he sits back there and kicks your hind end. Well, that puts you on the look. You got to have one. That's a confidence factor. And we've all been through that. Tommy's come to me, Tommy Martin, and asked me if I had a certain color worm or a certain style of worm. And back in the day, the old Berkeley Power worm, man, that dude right there, it was a killer worm, especially down there in them Florida lakes where them old bass are so sluggish and lethargic. And that's when I think scent and color is so important. Is some of them places where you got that brackish water and Florida bass. So we've all been through that.
Yeah.
The pro-on-pro draw days that we like to talk about, I mean, you hear co-anglers, they like to draw a guy who's moving, who's covering water and stuff. Like, did guys be like, "Oh, crap, I drew Larry Nixon. He's going to worm in front of me and I'm not going to have anything"? Or, I mean, would you guys get right up there and both chuck a worm at the same brush pile? I mean, how did that work? Because everyone knew you most likely were probably going to be chucking a worm at something fishing slow. That's a valid question, isn't it?
No, that's a valid question. Some of my biggest fears was drawing Hank Parker. I drew him twice. And he's like being in the boat with a baby water buffalo. He's bumping you with his butt. He's always in the way. He's standing in front, talking in your ear. He never hushes up, and he's hyper. And me and Hank had some real doodles on the front end of them boats. And you prefer the partner that fish 4 hours and then goes back. But no, we all had certain draws. Denny Breyer being a flipper, oh my gosh, he was a nightmare to fish behind because he could pick it apart. And of course, I know that people have said that about me too when I'm fishing because I control the boat, and if they sit in the back, they're in deep trouble. So we had many doodles on the front end of the boats. Believe me.
You got any good Harold Allen worm stories? Because I mean, it's been 5 or 6 years, but I've worm fished with Harold Allen. I mean, Harold's the type of guy where literally we were out, and I was like, "Harold, you got another worm hook? This one's kind of rusty." And he goes, "Matthew, set the damn hook harder." I mean, that's an old school worm fisherman right there, right?
Yeah.
You got any good old school Harold stories?
Old school Harold. Many boat races down there on the and he always had a fast boat. I kind of had a fast boat too. We raced all the way from Cypress Bend to the Pendleton Bridge one time, and he was like 10 foot behind my motor when I got to that bridge, but I stayed in front.
It did not make him happy.
He was. Let me tell you something about Harold. Harold was one of the best worm fishermen ever was.
Mm-hmm.
He was pretty awesome with a plastic worm. Guys, we shared info and talked, and that was just a staple back in them days.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Harold hated losing a boat race.
Yeah, he was obsessed with that. Even today, he's still obsessed with that.
When we were covering the Elite Series, he would we're shooting photos, right, of guys fishing, and when they got up on pad, he would race them. Yeah. We're a media boat. I remember he raced Tommy Biffle in a tournament on the Mississippi River, and I was like, Harold, we're like media. And he's like, I don't care. I just wanted to show him Skeeter was faster than his. Biffle's like, gets off pad. He's like, what are you doing, Harold? And he's like, I'm kicking your ass. That's what I'm doing.
Oh, I love that boy.
Wow. Larry, can you tell the fans from a tournament perspective what one of your fondest memories was fishing a worm, be it one single fish, be it a win? What would that be?
Well, I'm going to have to probably go back. I'm going to say it was probably the second or third tournament I won on Lake Millwood down there in southern Arkansas. Everything I caught in that tournament, I caught on worm, except for a few on a mud crankbait. And, and back then I think I was throwing an old jelly worm, an old 8-inch jelly worm on a Texas rig and old black grape. And it was just one of them tournaments that was tough as nails. And I happened to run across an old blue hen, and that dude would fly around in the woods. And everywhere he landed, there was a school of fish around there somewhere. And I kind of followed that boat around for about 3 days and walked off at that tournament. And that was kind of a big deal back then. But bird watcher. And I said, well, darn, that's what I do at Toledo Bend. They land on a log out there for a reason. There's minnows and there's bass around there that runs them to the top. And but anyway, I did win that particular tournament on a plastic worm. And, of course, the biggest of all was the Bassmasters Classic 1983. And caught all of it. I caught every fish I caught in that tournament on a plastic worm, every single one, a whole whopping total of 18 pounds. For 3 days.
1 ounce. You got another ounce. It was 18-1, Larry. Don't short yourself on the Ohio River. That's a big ounce.
Yeah.
It was a 3-day total. But that particular tournament right there is the fondest memory of all of it. Using a plastic worm. I've caught so many bass on a worm I couldn't even tell you about it. But that one right there, I can darn near remember every single fish I caught.
I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of the plastic worm hook set. I think this is overlooked a lot. A lot of the old Bassmasters. You've got the push the side button on the 5600 and feed them line. Wait till they eat the worm. You've got the straight over the head hook set. Now you've got, as soon as they've got, we know, they're inhaling it and set, but talk about have you set the hook the same way, or did you ever do the 4-aught true turn, push the button, and wait till it's down in the gullet and then just give it to them?
I learned that lesson before I ever went to Texas and Lake. I was out there night fishing, and me and this other guide, and he was probably the man back in them days, and we come in, and I pulled into the boat stall next to him. He's sitting over there drinking a beer at 1 a.m, and the lid on his ice chest won't even close. I'm talking tails hanging everywhere.
Wow.
And he looked over my boat and he said, "How'd you do, kid?" I said, "Well, we did not do good. We've got 12 or 15 in the boat." And I said, "I bet we had 30 or 40 hooked and never landed them." And he said, "Let me see that." And he jumped over in my boat, and I knew he was about half a bit, And he got one of my bass out of the icebox, and he looked at the roof of its mouth, and said, "You got another one out?" And he said, "Uh-huh, just what I suspected." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Look at his mouth here. At the roof of his mouth, you see that cut all the way down the roof of that mouth, and then right here's where the hole finally poked through." He said, "You let them have it too damn long, kid. You got to, when you feel a bite, pull up the slack, set the hook, because he ain't got hands." and I pretty much lived by that motto my whole life. On a good, if I feel a peck, now that might be a bluegill or a brim. If I need to ease up and see if there's any tightness there. But most of the time, when that thing goes, and that line jumps, and I pick up and it's tight, I'm setting the hook right now. Because I don't want that hook back there in the roof of that mouth where you can't penetrate it.
Very nice.
It seemed like almost until you had the underwater footage with some of that documentary that came out where you had the technology to watch how bass ate and stuff like that people realized, oh, they're sucking in a 10-inch worm like all at once. It's not like biting the tail and then biting it halfway and then 3/4 and then getting the hook. And it was like that. It was just like overnight. If you watch the videos, like the old YouTube videos, it was like there was like a year or two where it went from there's a bite, feed them line, to bite, yak it. You know what I mean? It was like clicked, it seemed, for the entire field over a couple year span right there.
Yes. Fish normally kill things and eat them head first. And I think 90% of the time, now I have fished tournaments and I have been to certain lakes where I had to let them have it a little longer than others. But that's something that I develop, of course, as practice goes on, because some days, if they swallow that bait, I do not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. You see a lot of fish caught, people don't even know they got one on there, and when they finally do realize they got one on there, where's the hook? It's all the way out of sight. You're not going to lose that fish, but for good likelihood, you're not going to get it away in alive. So, I don't like the idea of letting them have it too long. I always just play that by ear, but 99 times out of 100, when I realize one's got it, I pick up. If it's tight, I set the hook right then. I'm not dropping that rod. I'm going to set the hook no matter where I'm at. That's when you see a lot of usually hook sets. But that's why I use a hook that's easy to penetrate. These big gaff hooks, I can't handle them. I don't like them. They're only good for braided line, in my opinion. And so I normally use a good sharp hook that's small diameter that penetrates easy. And when I pull on a fish, I've got him.
There you have it. All right, Larry, here's what we'd like to do. I know there's some fans out there that have questions for you. Let's take a short break, and then we'll come back, and the fans will ask Larry Nixon some questions. You okay with that, Larry?
I can handle it.
All right, let's do that. So we'll take a short break, everybody. Stay right there. Back in a few minutes here on BTL.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
The Big Bite Baits Kamikaze Swim On is a very unique bait, and it's got a full body but with ribs to give it a bigger profile but not more plastic. It's got a jointed tail that gives it a lot of action, as well as this up and down crawl type trail with holes and ribs in it, so it creates a bubble trail almost. This bait is supposed to be fished upside down or vertical like this on a great for a chatterbait. I prefer it on a swim jig as well, but you can also cut it down and put it on the back of a finesse jig. Flip it around for some spotted bass or flipping docks. Anytime you want a small, compact, little trailer for it, this is great for it. So check out the full lineup of swim-ons at bigbitebaits.com. As a professional angler, you've got so many things on your mind. Any advantage that we have is key. And not only rods and reels and lines and baits, but in our clothes. And the guys at AFCO, they have something for every situation. There's nothing AFCO hasn't thought about with the fishermen in mind. It's designed for fishermen, by fishermen, for every scenario you can come to. Any fish, any water, any condition, AFCO has you covered.
Yeah, you care about gear ratios, inches per turn, and ball bearings, but most importantly, you want reliability and dependability in the equipment you use. Luz doesn't cut corners when it comes to the gear they build. The new Speed Spool LFS is the best $99 reel in the market. Go see for yourself.
The name SPRO says it all. SPRO stands for Sports Professionals. When you look at the pro staff that SPRO has brought on board over the past 15 years, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, one got it just then. From the development of the rock crawler to the McStick, from the Fat Papa to the Little John series, when you tie a SPRO bait on, you know it's been designed by a professional to get the job done.
At Duckett Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duckett Fishing, pro-driven.
Blue Water by TH Marine. Offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
All right, we are back, closing out the week. Big week for me. And we have our very, very special guest, Larry Nixon, on the line. And Larry, you still there, man?
Yes, sir.
All right. We want to take questions from the fans now for a few minutes, both from the YouTube page and from the BassZone.com page. A lot of people want to know, how's your shoulder doing, Larry?
My shoulder is doing really good. I'm still gaining strength back and still doing exercises. This is a little bit over 6 months now. And the only problem right now I'm having is issues with my little finger and my ring finger on my right hand with numbness. And I'm going to go to a neurologist on the 30th and see if they can get that figured out, because when they put that shoulder in there, once I started rehabbing and exercising it, all of a sudden I felt them two fingers going numb. And with COVID and all the things that's been going on for the last 4 months, I just have not been in to get it checked. And now finally I've got to get it fixed. I thought it would come back, but it's not done it yet. And do you realize that the little finger and the ring finger and your middle finger, that's the most sensitive fingers on your hand?
Huh.
You put a spinning rod in my right hand right now, and I'm kind of halfway guessing when I got a bite. And I don't like that.
Wow.
Now, a good worm fisherman once told me if you can't feel the bite, you lose a lot of fish if you let them swallow it. It's a little hot tip for you there. You got to set it as soon as you feel it, 99 times out of 100.
Yeah, you feel weight, and if you can't really distinguish what the leg is, you set the hook in a lot of limbs, and that don't fly for me.
So Jim asked this earlier. He said, with the shoulder surgery that you've been to, what are your thoughts that it came out that Rick Clunn fished less than a month after rotator cuff surgery?
Well, I really kind of think that wasn't very smart on his part, because you can do a lot of damage. You know, I really don't know the extent of his surgery, whether it was just a scope, when they cleaned something out or something like that. There's really no telling. But if they had done serious surgery on that shoulder, I promise you, he wouldn't have been fishing in a month.
Yeah.
Wow. Another question on both formats. A lot of people, one of your long-standing sponsors, been with you for a zillion years, is Evinrude. Is there anything that you can say about the Evinrude situation with you, Larry?
I really don't know anything more. They just throwed all of us out in the cold. And, I'm not going to say that it's just because that country is Canadians and which Bombardier is, and they're just not going to uphold their end of the contracts. I do know that it was a shock to all of us, and now it's going to really hurt the industry in a lot of ways, because without competition, there's nowhere to go. And now we just got Yamaha, and Suzuki, and Honda, and Mercury. So we got to make a decision on which way we're going to go. And really, there ain't none of us. I guess our 30-day grace period's up. We could probably go ahead and make that decision right now. But we can't do anything in the courts until December 31st because that's when the contract expires. And I don't know that we as a group of fishermen are going to do anything. I already kissed it bye, to be honest with you. And I just got to make that decision on which way I'm going to go on engines.
What? Okay, so you got a closet full of stuff that says Evinrude, shirts, hats, raid jacket, like everything.
A lot of stuff.
And I've never asked this to anyone, but I've been meaning to. You've been around for a long time. You've had a lot of long-time sponsors. You've also had sponsors that come and go. What do you do with all that clothing after something goes away that obviously isn't going to... You, donate it to Goodwill? You, give it to other people? Do you just have, 3 closets full of... where does all that stuff go? Because it's, a lot of stuff.
Well, let me tell you something. If it's got my name on it, it either gets burned or donated. But, yeah. A lot of hats I give the farmers around here to keep the sun off their face. They love my hats because they're all vintage, and so I just give them away. I don't wear them no more. And it is an issue. I've got probably close to 75 cases of oil. What am I going to do with all that oil? I guess I'll sell it to somebody.
Wow.
There's a lot of fishermen out there that ain't going to be able to afford just to go get a new motor just because he can't trade for an Evinrude no more. He'll just keep the one he's got.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a shock. I believe me, I done cleaned my closet out. So
we'll be driving around Arkansas. The farmers will just be Evinruded out for the next 2-3 years.
Yeah. That's why Amy, she won't even dare let one of my shirts get out here without my name on it. That ain't gonna happen.
That's good stuff.
Wow. All right.
The others, we'll give them away. Somebody can go fishing at them or whatever. But it's a pain in the butt, believe me.
Wow. All right. Jordan wants to know, what is your personal best single fish on a worm, and what's your personal best 5-fish limit all on a worm?
My biggest fish was a 10-10 I caught in Florida at that Megabucks tournament during the qualifying round. And I caught it on a ribbon tail worm, boys, a swimming tail worm and some lily pads. It wasn't the old iconic fish on that, Grace Bassmaster TV for many, many, many years, but it was one during the first 3 days of qualifying. And, so that is my biggest. My biggest limit, I'm going to say, was 28 something in Florida. And that was on a Cinco. It was almost 30 pounds. It was close enough. I called it 30, but it wasn't 30. But that's my biggest limit.
All right, there you have it. Next up, somebody wants to know, when you were earlier talking about hooks, what style of hook do you prefer, and has it changed over the years, or has it pretty much stayed the same?
Well, you have to change hooks on the size and diameter of worms. I mean, but my favorite hook of all hooks is still a 4/0 rebar, which I throw probably 80 or 90% of the time in most worms that I throw. Now, if it's a real fat worm like a Cinco, I usually put it on a 3 or a 4/0 EWG style hook. And same way if I'm flipping worms and flipping plastics, I use an EWG style hook, usually the light wire, and unless I'm required to use braid because of real heavy vegetation or something, and then I'll use the EWG Superline. A new hook that I've been using this year and last year more than any other hook is that new G Finesse hook of Domakatsu. So that is really an awesome big worm hook. 4/0, 5/0. I don't know if they've got a 6/0, But the 5/0 is actually pretty good size, and I don't really look at the length of a hook when I'm worrying about how it sits on the bait. And to me, that's the most important thing is you get the bait rigged up, you rig it up straight, and yet you've got plenty of hook to go through the worm to hook that bass. And that's when that keeping S worm is so good on big worms.
All right, I'm wondering this. When people go into a Bass Pro Shops, an Academy, Dick's, whatever it is, small retailer in their local towns, and they see all the selection, all the variety of different creature baits, different shad baits, they have all these choices now. Larry, do you think that people just walk past the worm and forget about the worm? And is that a characteristic that has just kind of developed over time, or is the worm as strong as ever? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the worm is as strong as ever. Fortunately for me, a lot of people have forgotten and don't pick up a worm as much as they used to. They're I don't know whether I can say they're psyched out to fish moving baits or flip fast or cover water. You know, you hear all this cover water, and you watch Jordan Lee or you watch Kevin Van Dam. When they find the fish or figure out what the fish are doing, hey, they fish like tortoises. You know, they're slow as I am, and people slow as I am in this world. And a worm makes you think you've got to fish slow, but that is not the case. You know, a worm can be fished so many different ways and so many different patterns and so many different speeds. And that's, to me, what makes a worm so good is I do everything you can do with a worm. I don't just throw it out there and kick my heels back, set my rod up in there and shake it a little bit, move it a foot or two, and no. I fish a worm just like a lot of people fish a crankbait, target fish, throw it over there, hop it twice, reel it in, throw it up back to another target. So for me, the less fish that see worms, that's more fish for me to catch. So I love that. You know, I love it that it don't get talked about that much in magazines and in print and all that stuff. That's when I go bass fishing, you're gonna find about 3 rods in my boat rigged up with a jig head or a Texas rig or 3 different styles. Always been a point for that pattern. To me, that's a pattern that a guy has got to have if he's going to compete in bass fishing.
So you're fishing a worm like a reaction bait. You're either getting their attention on the fall, they're hitting it on the fall, you're putting it in their face, you're hopping it once, and you're reeling it back in. You're not soaking the worm. You're literally fishing it like a reaction bait, like a Keith Combs who gets down there and burns a crankbait in front of a fish's mouth.
Absolutely. I hop it, jerk it, anything I can do to get one to react to it. I utilize a worm for lots and lots of different lures, and it doesn't. I'm looking for that subtle bite, but then again, I'd rather have that reaction bite because that enables me to look around a little bit more and fish a little bit faster. Once you get that reaction bite going, that's something that you can catch them even when they're not feeding.
So angles then are very important.
You're tripping that trigger, and that's very important in catching fish when they're not biting.
You're doing the same thing Fritz does when he's talking about the crankbaits and all that, except you're doing it with a piece of plastic.
That's exactly right.
Did you ever draw him? Did you ever have a crankbait versus worm duel?
I don't think me and David ever did draw that.
That would have been a fun one.
I drew Kevin, but I went all the way to North Carolina to give a fishing lessons from Fritz one time with crankbait. So there you go.
Wait, you went there for him to give you crankbait lessons?
That's absolutely right. I was a lousy crankbait fisherman, and I still am. But I got me a darn good lesson from David Fritz one time, and I was going to utilize it till it come a flood, and the lake come up about 6 foot, and that deal went away. But yeah, I'm not bashful, guys. I don't care to go learn something from somebody. I went all the way to Kentucky Lake to get Brett Anderson to teach me how to look at side scan and down scan and find fish.
That's
cool. You got to learn how to do things, and the best way to do it is get in the boat with somebody that knows what they're doing.
Rick's like that too.
Yeah.
You just assume old school, like the guys who've been there and done it, and you've both won classics and titles and 15 tournaments. But like you see Rick in the boat with Brett Height, and they got a bladed jig in their hand. You see him in the boat with Rojas, and they're looking at frog tails.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you guys, that's what I'm saying. Never stop. Do you believe this is true, Larry, that this fishing thing is cyclical, and you start out knowing nothing, and then you get to a point where you have like a lot of success because you don't know what you don't know, so you just stick with the basic things, and you're like, oh, this is easy. Then you start like talking to people who know stuff, and you have this whole period where like you pretty much end up like everyone else, and you kind of think that you know it all, and then you like reach it full circle where you realize the longer you do it and the more you do it, the less you actually know about it.
Well, there's definitely certain baits and certain lures and things that I don't know as much as I should. I'll be the first to admit it. I hate swim baits. I don't know anything about them stinking things, but I do know they will catch big fish. But I don't understand them, so I don't even go. I'm going to do what I know how to do. And if opportunity comes up where I get in the boat with somebody and they're catching them on a swim bait, then I'm going to get my lesson.
It's good stuff.
All right.
Y'all keeping up with MLF this week?
Yeah.
It's been crazy.
Hey, what about that Andy Morgan? How many fish you think he's caught on drop shot in his life till this tournament?
I think there was a picture of him with the spinning rod offshore, and it looked really weird.
I can't wait to go the duck blind with him and have a beer and get him to talk about this tournament, because I know good and well he don't know doodly squat about drop shot. And somebody had to have rigged it up for him because he didn't know how to tie that thing on.
Larry's savage. I don't know. I mean, I assume you do all your own social media and stuff, but like you'll be on like a post or something, and there'll be like one of these just chaos threads with like 300 responses. And then Larry Nixon will just chime in with like one or two words or an emoji or something, and it just makes it so much better. Like, I mean, that's you doing that, right?
Yep, that's me doing that.
Dude,
I don't have nobody.
It's legendary.
My wife don't post my crap.
No, never disrespectful, never anything like that. Just, just maybe one of those like thinking emojis, like looking up at the rest of the post. Just something to let people know that you're in the mix, that you're around there, Larry.
I know what's going on.
I freaking love it when I see that. It's like usually like buried like 100 posts down in a thread. It's good stuff, Larry.
It is good.
I thought I'd bring that up, give you an attaboy for that.
Very nice. All right, Punfish wants to know, do you ever throw a lizard?
Do I ever throw a lizard?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. you're a bass fisherman, you got to throw a lizard in the spring. That is the main thing for a lizard. It's, when they're guarding fry, guarding their eggs, guarding their yeast, the lizard is an enemy. It's also food, but it's an enemy. And it can be way better than anything else you can throw.
All right, let's see here. Our good friend John wants to know, how do you differentiate between the style of worm and when? Cinco, curly tail, speed worm. And then what is your go-to setup for a worm?
Well, you differentiate between worm styles based on the color and the water color. The clearer a lake is, the skinnier, straight-tailed designs are going to work much better than your bulky ribbon tails, curly tails, and all that. As you get into a little bit off-colored water, then you want to start thinking about cover. And if you got heavy cover, a swimming tail worm a lot of times, or a big ribbon tail worm, it'll go through that cover just as well as a straight tail, but yet you've got that little bit of added action to it that makes it swim up and over limbs and through grass and through weeds. And that's how I decide on what kind of action I'm going to use. And the size of the bass that's in the body of water a lot of times is what dictates whether I use big stuff or little stuff. And, a 12-inch or a 10-inch worm versus a 7 or a 6. And nowadays, and this is very important nowadays, because I'm going to tell you right. I'm just going to tell you one little instance. Nowadays, you've got so many good fishermen that sometimes you just got to pull out that spinning rod and pull out that little worm and pull out your shaky head or a 3/16 ounce weight and put you a straight tail worm on there and drop it in them holes where you can't get a bite on your big 10, 11-inch worm no more, and you're going to be surprised on what you catch, because you can't get your rear end kicked good with light line and a straight tail worm in a big bass factory like San Luis Bend and Lake Fork. I've seen it happen too many times. And, sometimes it's the type of day that causes that. It may be a bad fishing day, like bluebird skies, no wind, and you just got to go small. And so that's how I work through my selection of baits is the fishability of the bait, the watercolor. That determines size and action is watercolor more than anything else.
All right.
Did I cover all that? Or,
yeah. No, that's great.
5-hour seminar in a minute and a half, right there.
Pretty much. Larry, if you get your health where you want it, and we get through this COVID situation going into 2021, do you have any idea what your plans are for the future?
Well, right now I'm for sure. Since everything is like it is right now, I just the best thing for me is to not worry about it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to the last 3 FLW tournaments this year, and then of course the nerve damage to my them 2 fingers is pretty much knocked that out of the equation. I'm not going to go fish halfway. If I can't make the championship and be proud of where I finish in the tournament, I'm just going to sit this one out to get healthy. And next year, I make a decision based on my sponsors that I get or keep, or what they would like for me to do. I might go back and fish bass if I get the Legends exemption. I may be you about that. And, if not, I'll fish FLW. Nothing's set in stone right now because of what's going on in this world. I'm just going to play it by ear and not worry about it. I'm going to go hunting with George Cochran this fall and have me a ball.
Nice.
I have one more question. What do you know about barrel racing?
Oh, my daughter's into that stuff now. I'm sitting here looking at her barrel pattern out there in my field right now. I don't do it, but I know somebody that's pretty good at it.
We my girlfriend, I think, competes against your daughter in some of the stuff around there in Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, all those.
Well, sweet, good deal.
It's good times right there, huh?
Oh, that'll get in your pocketbook, won't it?
Not his.
Yeah, you gotta buy shoes for them horses. You gotta have their teeth shaved. You gotta do this, do that. Oh, she's gotta have an injection. That'll really get in your pocketbook.
Just a little bit. You got good thing you've sold a lot of worms in your day, Larry. That's all I'm saying.
It's a darn good thing my wife took good care of what I want over the years. That's all I can say about that.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great stuff. Larry, man, such a great time. Really, really appreciate you coming on the show again. And, man, we hope that you get through your health challenges and hope to see you back out there battling very, very soon.
Thank you guys very much. Enjoyed it, and glad to have the opportunity to teach a few people things about fishing.
All right, man. We'll get you back on soon, Larry. Best of luck to you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, take
Bye-bye.
care. There you have it, Larry Nixon. Great stuff. Great stuff, Matt. How about that scoop? Was that a scoop?
I don't know if it's a scoop or not.
I don't think anybody saw that coming.
He was just saying that he possibly had options. That's all he was saying.
Okay.
Right?
That's still never been out there that I've ever seen or heard. Yes or no?
He's still 5 years younger than Rick, so I mean he's got plenty of time.
I would love to see that on the Elite Series.
I wonder if would he get Would he have to fish the opens to be like a member of Bass before they let him back in, or?
He's probably a lifetime member, dude.
No, I meant like actively competing. Would they go for Legends exemptions for guys who are actively?
I don't know. I don't know what the rule is.
We're putting
on
the
that.
cart way ahead of the horse here, but is how many AOYs does he have?
I have no idea, man.
This drives me nuts. Why is there not a list of like who's won? Why is there just not a list? It's the freaking angler of the year. Why can't you go on and say, hey, here's all the anglers of the years? Fair point?
Yeah. I don't know. Can't explain that one. Do they have a photo gallery of it, maybe?
No, I mean, I'm just sitting here staring at it, trying to figure out on Bassmaster, the Bassmaster site is kick-ass now. But...
Oh, it's so much better.
Let's put some history up there.
Yeah.
To have a history page. I mean, it would get probably as many views as the conservation page. But those who look at it, it's important to them.
Yes,
he's wearing the red, white, and blue Team Evinrude jersey in this Bassmaster photo.
He was pretty vocal about that, too.
Yeah.
Very vocal.
And what's the common thread that we've heard from all these Evinrude guys is blindsided.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're like, oh, we'll just pretend we didn't. Like,
I kind of thought something was going on.
No one thought anything was. No one thought anything was going on.
No. Not at all.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. So, well, the first thing he's got to do, he's got to get his health.
It sounds like he's on the right path once he gets the feeling in the fingers thing. That would be scary. Jordan saying 2 AOYs in 80 and 82.
Okay.
With the classic.
He could get the exemption, man.
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
I think he could.
You look at the worm fisherman guys. Look at Harold's stats and Larry's and those guys who are noted for worms. Now, Larry's the most winning worm guy, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But man, it's a really good way. Who was I saying? Not to suck. Throwing a worm.
Yeah.
It's a really good way not to suck. A lot of 30, 40, 50 places overall out of 200 anglers, a lot of 10, 20s, a lot of those. With a worm.
We've talked about this on the show before. Van Dam using a jerkbait when you just kind of shake your head and go, what the heck is he throwing a jerkbait for this time of the year? I thought a jerkbait, you only threw it pre-spawn and maybe a little bit of spawn, and that's it. You put it away. And he's proven that theory totally wrong. Could you do the same thing for the worm?
100% the way he described his fishing. Okay, here's what I'm kind of putting together. You know, how many hundreds of these guys have we interviewed? I mean, the best of the best.
Yeah.
There's one common theme with these guys, and they use different baits to get it done, right? As a whole. Now, I'm saying there's also outliers and stuff, but as a whole, would you not say, you know, whether it's Van Dam with the jerkbait, spinnerbait, Hackney flipping, Nixon with the worm, Fritz, Combe, guys cranking like that, they all have perfected a way to maximize the reaction bite.
Yeah,
like
that's a great point.
The best of the best.
Yeah.
You don't ever hear them talking about talking the fish into eating it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Hackney, I'm in and out. Combs, I'm burning it based on color. I don't want him to get a good look. Van Dam, I'm putting something in front of him that's making him make a decision. Nixon, I'm casting the worm down there. I'm hopping it once. I'm using it as a react. I mean, these guys aren't relying on a feeding bite to become the best in the history of the sport as a whole, because fish don't always feed. The barometric pressure, you have bait, you have different. What they're the best in the world at is understanding how to use the tools that they have to get bites and put their bait in front of fish. Then whether they choose to do that shallow, deep, crankbait, hard bait, soft bait is a personal preference on how they were raised and who taught them and their best. But I mean, the more and more you talk, it's reaction, baits, and efficiency.
No, that's a great point. Great.
As a whole, in general.
Let me ask you this. I remember when I started fishing a worm for the first time and really trying to learn how to do it and everything, the visualization that I had in my head of when that fish was reacting to that worm was, okay, he's got the tail. That was the first thing.
Yeah.
Okay, he's got the tail. All right, here, go ahead, take it, get to the rest of the worm, get it. Oh, boom, and set the hook. Do you think that is a visualization that most people have when they start fishing a worm for the first time?
Absolutely. Did you watch a KVD in the BPT event out here trying to make the cut? Dude, I am not kidding. The guy was making 6 casts a minute with a drop shot. Watch it.
Go back and watch the replay.
Okay, he's fishing a drop shot, right?
Yeah.
Half-ounce weight, I think is what he said. It was cast, hit the bottom, one pump, burn it back in. Cast, hit the bottom. He was trying to get one of them, those smallmouth that were around those boulders there. He wanted it to react. He wanted that fish to follow it down. It hits the bottom. Boom, it eats it. No time for decision making. I mean, here he is, smallmouth fishing, Great Lakes offshore stuff, power fishing the drop shot, just reaction. He wasn't sitting there messing around with it, giving it little shakes. I mean, it was either on there on the drop when he picked up, or he was cranking in and making another pitch.
Yeah.
He's doing the same thing with the drop shot.
Yeah. By the way, I did want to let you know, I don't know if you've seen this, a couple of videos out on social media where guys tried to catch him shallow. And I remember you mentioned that last week. And they failed miserably. They got on him, but guess what? There were a lot of fish, but they were all less than 2 pounds, according to what they said.
Yeah, I talked to Cliff Crochet for probably 30 minutes about this, and he got on a shallow deal.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought he could do really well on a shallow deal. Smallmouth, up shallow.
Yeah, same thing.
And it sucked. But now you remember as the tournament went on a couple days ago, before the final round, a lot of the deep guys struggled, and the shallow guys caught them.
Yeah.
And Rob Newell was talking about the water temperature changing and stuff. So I wonder if something didn't happen to where that shallow bite returned, because there were a lot of guys that tried the shallow bite, and the deep bite was on, but a lot of the deep guys struggled until they went shallow. You saw what Keith Poche and Lee and Ish and a lot of those guys are up shallow now, where you could see the bottom, but that wasn't there in the first couple rounds.
No, you're right.
Those guys are all headed home with $3,000 in their pocket. They paid the full field.
All right, let me ask you this, and then we'll wrap things up. Any idea, and don't look it up, any idea who won the 1985 Bassmaster Classic?
Larry.
No.
The
85.
Okay, 82 was Elias, so 80. Would 84 have been Nixon? Or Klon?
85.
I'm trying to think.
Oh, you're trying to...
82. It wasn't Jack Chancellor?
That it was. I am very impressed. You kind of backed in it. Dude, that's impressive. I'll give it up to you, man. Seriously.
I
Very cool.
can't tell you what lake it was on. Was it Bugs? It wasn't Bugs Island, was it?
No, it was not. Here, let me throw this up. I'm only going to show a little bit of it here if I can get it to work. Let's see.
Is he worm fishing?
That might be. I haven't looked at it. Hang on here. It's not great video.
Is this going to be the first dance song at the wedding?
No.
Ooh, there's Rick.
Yeah.
This is old school stuff.
It is.
Man, the high hats. The high hats were in style then. Look at that. Getting all love from the
wow.
wife. Ooh. Action. Motor starting. This is just like a YouTube video now. Got the slow-mo back in, the motor starting, idling out for the day. There he is. See, I told you. That's how it was. He's like, no one kill each other, good luck. Bang. Fair point?
Yeah.
All right.
So, hang on, let's see here. I want to see.
The Bassmasters Classic, the World Championship of Professional
Look where it is.
Bass The 15th annual test of the
Did you see where it was?
No, where did it say?
America's
Arkansas
greatest
River.
bass anglers go rod to rod for 3 days to prove who's the best.
Look at that start.
History was made last year
That
when
looks
the
like
same
the
94
lock
mile
at
stretch of
Kern.
Arkansas River near Pine Bluff,
Oh, except
when Rick
way
Klein
calmer.
won an unprecedented third world championship.
Yeah,
With a
1984.
record catch
Yep.
of 75 pounds, 9
All right,
ounces.
let's see if I can get.
None
Let
of
me fast forward here. That didn't work.
Yeah.
That's not working. All right. Anyway.
Bass will hit you with the pop-up ads.
I don't like
We
the
still got
pop-up.
the audio.
I know. It's gone. All right, there we go. Anyway, I'm working on getting our next legend on the show, and we're going to get Jack Chancellor.
Really? How did you
Yeah.
come up with that?
Dude, I was talking to Ken Duke, and we were talking about other things, and he was just like, you need to get Jack on. So I got his contact info, and we will be putting that together for a future show, hopefully over the next couple of weeks.
They did a Where Are They Now on him.
Yeah.
On Bassmaster, but it was 2011.
Yeah, long time ago. So he's in his 70s now, but Ken said that he's a great interview.
The
He's got
70s are the
great
new
stories.
50s. 70s are the new 50s.
Yeah. So working on that. All right, man. Anything else?
No. I got nothing else.
Who are you picking to win? Pick somebody.
Dude, it would kind of suck if you catch like over 200 pounds and 140 pounds in one day and then you don't win the damn tournament.
It's the way it goes, man.
I'm just saying.
That's how it rolls. Things have changed.
I mean, Lucas has had a rough go of it.
Yeah.
On the MLF as a whole. I'd like to see him win it.
Going with him, huh?
I don't know. I mean, I like Bertrand up there. I got
Yeah.
Mark Daniels Jr. would be a good story. Andy Morgan on the smallmouth. Jordan Lee just coming off of the Egler of the Year winning it. You could pick Ike or Ish, who literally are only there because of the last 30 seconds.
You just mentioned the entire field just about. All I asked you for was a pick.
Lucas.
And we'll see what happens.
Lucas deserves this win. Not that other guys don't. But, I mean, if you're going to be in the record books for the most weight,
yeah,
you might as well win the tournament. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like setting a home run record or RBI record and losing the game.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You agree with me on that?
Yes.
Couple interesting. Now, since
Yeah.
we've got this flatworm wars going on, everybody is pointing out the brands of soft plastics these guys are drop shotting.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at. You got like Z-Man at the top, Flatworm, Yum, Zoom, Flatworm. I don't know what Cliff Pace is using. Is he still a Jackal dude?
Do what now?
What's Cliff Pace? Is he still a Jackal dude?
I don't know. I don't know. Look real quick. I don't know. You know, I asked you to pick a winner, but
I don't think he's a V&M dude.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, man. Well, that is.
I picked
going
Justin
to-
Lucas.
Yeah.
Who are you picking?
I don't know. MDJ maybe.
Well,
Ike.
'cause he's leading now.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, MDJ, but only by like 2 pounds.
Oh.
You want to see Ike win one of these?
I do. I'd like to see it, especially with what happened yesterday. It was kind of crazy.
Let me ask you this. We can end on some controversy.
Oh, jeez.
Is there anybody fishing today who does not fish the Bass Pro Tour next year?
Let me pull up the list. That's just a yes or no question.
Right.
I'm not going to say who I think. Hang on. Let me look here. Fishing today. I would say yes.
All right.
In my opinion.
There you go.
I would say yes. I mean, I have no inside information, but I got 10 guys, and I think there might be one of those 10. Maybe. I don't know. What's your response? Yes or no?
I just ask you. I just ask the questions over here.
Yes or no? I'm asking you. out of the 10.
Is there a guy who isn't fishing MLF?
Yeah.
I think they'll all fish MLF next year.
Do you?
Yep.
Okay. I would say 9 out of the 10. I think there's one guy that won't. Could be wrong. I think one guy. But you say 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
I'm still in a believe it when I see it camp.
Well, it could be 10 out of 10 too. I mean, who knows? All right. What do you have on tap this weekend, Matthew?
I think I'm going to fish the Wednesday nighter tonight.
Oh, you are?
You know what I'm going to do?
Hang around here all day?
Well,
you can.
I got to go see the welder.
Oh, yeah.
Aggressively backed the boat into a place that had I was an aggressive backer in it. Yeah, super easy fix. And then I'm going to go throw a big worm on brush piles in the summertime.
Nice.
And then crappie fishing this weekend with Juice for maybe 1 or 2 sessions. And that's about it. Next time we see you,
I will have a daughter-in-law.
And you're going to be that father-in-law.
Yeah, it was funny. Carolyn last night, she goes, do you realize you have to make a speech tomorrow night?
How long have I been telling you this,
I know.
Mark?
And I said, look, I got it covered.
Look,
I can just wing it.
You got 30 seconds before the bumper music ends. Give me the first line. The opening line. You're standing there. Everybody's eating the finger food 6 feet apart. You got the masks on. It's mainly friends and family, and they're going, speech. Yeah. You stand up there.
When we have friends and family together like this, how cool is it to see somebody that has been together for 10 years since they were freshmen in high school continue the journey of life?
That's the opening line?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good.
Thank you. I just came up with that.
That is really good, Mark.
I can wing it, man. I can wing those things. We'll see. It's going to be a great weekend for me, folks. Thank you for the emails. I got a couple of comments on it, on the instant feedback that I didn't post. And very, very excited. Going to be hot. And we will get through this. But Matt and I back on Monday. Make sure you check the Bass Zone, BassZone.com for the schedule next week. I want to thank Larry Nixon once again. A great, great guest. And we will continue to move forward with what we do here on BTL. Everybody be safe. That's it. We're out of here.